unfortunately. He lied to the House of Commons, he lied to the Queen, he lied to all of us about Brexit. The entire public life in this country has been degraded. We can't trust anyone. The public services are in a mess. Our beaches are polluted. Our international standing has collapsed. Our economy is tanked. It's very hard for our youth to pay off their student debt.
I'm getting the sense you're not a fan.
In fact, I can't really see it. Sorry.
No. Just tell us a little bit about how you know Boris Johnson yourself.
Well, we worked together many years ago in the 1990s. I was his deputy in Brussels. We were both reporting on what was then the European Community for the Daily Telegraph. It was an office of two. He hadn't really worked that closely with anyone before. It was quite, eye-opening, I think is the word I'd use.
In what sense?
Well, we were working very long hours. It was during something called the Maastricht Treaty negotiations, so it seemed like a big story at the time, kind of dwarfed by things subsequently. So we were working quite long hours. You tend to get to know someone pretty well under that kind of stress. And I initially, when I first arrived, and he'd been in Old Town in Brussels for a long time, I couldn't understand how he was writing these stories from events that we were both witnessing. I thought there was something wrong with me because I hadn't seen what was going on. And but actually it turned out that, you know, a lot of it was the sort of embellishment or stretching the truth until it kind of snapped. And that was, you know, over time, it was more and more shocking. And he was also a terrible bully. I mean, as a woman on my own in the office with him, it was often very, very uncomfortable. I mean, he has a pretty ferocious temper over the most extraordinary things. And he was a very, very difficult colleague to work with. And I guess from that point onwards, I always thought I had these severe doubts about him. And once he started accumulating power, first of all, Mayor of London, and then, as we know, onwards and upwards thereafter, I was worried because I sort of thought that one day this what has happened now would happen, and indeed it has.
And what happened after you published the book about him, Sonia? I mean, there's been this allegation that members of the Privileges Committee have been the victim of, you know, some kind of intimidation, and we don't know exactly what that means at the moment. Perhaps we'll know more over the coming days and weeks. But does that kind of ring an alarm bell of recognition to you?
Yes, unfortunately it did. When I wrote the book, it came out in 2012, the last edition did. I was incredibly careful with facts. I checked them 4 or 5 times. I interviewed 200 people. I got all sorts of people to check, as well as my checking, when it came out. And it was critical of him. It was critical, not hostile, but certainly very critical. An aide of Boris Johnson's told me that he was worried about it because there was nothing in the book that he could really contest. And so what happened instead is that his people started spreading rumours about me, totally untrue, smears, basically saying that we'd had an affair, that I'd written a book because he wouldn't marry me, the kind of, you know, the misogynist old trope of a woman scorned kind of thing. All sorts of things appeared about me here and there. I had my neighbour noted some blokes doing some strange things outside my house, probably looking in my bins. I was banned from writing from certain newspapers and certain literary festivals. I mean, it was very difficult. My whole kind of livelihood was really trashed.
But do you know for a fact that that actually could be traced back to him?
Well, these were all people spreading these reports that are kind of part of the Johnson diaspora. And I've been told by the researcher of one radio interviewer, for example, who put this out on air, that Johnson had been in the studio shortly beforehand. So, you know, he doesn't leave traces. But if you look at Henley, interestingly, your past, your
previous guest,
guest was talking about Henley. When Johnson was selected for Henley, this was after a dirty tricks campaign where all the other candidates that he was up against, probably much better qualified than him, suddenly there were all these anonymous letters and phone calls saying that they were gay, when at that point being gay in the Conservative Party was career-ending, or an alcoholic, or secretly great friends of Cherie Blair, or a total Europhile, whatever it was. All these letters and phone calls were made anonymously, and against expectations, Johnson secured that seat for the Conservative
Right.
Party.
Well, I mean, I should just say
so
that
he has form.
Sure, yeah. I should just say that we can't verify all of those allegations here on the programme. And obviously we don't, as yet, have Boris Johnson here to give a right to reply. But we take all of that on board. If I can just ask you, Sonia, if the bad side of the man were to be lying and deception and arrogance and duplicity, but the good side of the man is being able to carry a mood, to be a persuader, to be a great survivor, does that enable him to, at some stage, bounce back?
Look, I think Boris Johnson is a tragedy for the reason that he does have great gifts. He's a great campaigner, he's a great writer, he can, like you say, carry a mood in a way that other people simply can't. I hope he doesn't come back, because I think he's done a great deal of harm to politics and democracy generally. I hope he goes off and does something better somewhere else, that something will ultimately benefit this country. But I'm not saying that he's a man without gifts. He certainly has many gifts. Just he hasn't deployed them for the benefit of others. They've been deployed rather for the benefit of Boris Johnson.
If you enjoyed that, what should people do?
Well, the best thing would be if you could listen to us on Times Radio, Monday to Thursday, 3 till 5, Jane and Fee.